lanes. That's my prerogative, my cash stack like Miss Taskmacher's rap. And dripping on feminine women, chocolate dipping and Wallace they claim pippin', Ray Kane dipping, insane living. The D equipped me to rip scripts on beats and line pockets deep. Yeah, this he owe me, baby. He owe me, baby. He owe me, baby. The world is mine like I was Tony, baby. You don't know me, baby. You don't know me, baby. Original Asiatic, black magic, it's all on me, baby. I flow mo on this episode. Hope Lolo expose what's under this polo logo. Make my dick big as Bolo. Make her sing soprano like an oboe. When she catch these balls like Ocho Cinco highlights in slow-mo. Anyways, I get boatloads of dough. I suppose you don't know this precious soul. Don't play about my control. I had a Damascus Road episode. My African gold stroll with the ancestors to unroll this Iomi mold. My homie told me whatever you do, gangsta rules still apply. Why? We in America where the truth is wrapped in lies. So truth is I hypnotize and devise ways to make supplies. Lay out for my guys today. I advise you don't play. I got 3 kings on the rise of blade.
What's going on? What's going on?
Welcome hello.
Back again. We back again. How you doing, Tracy?
Doing good. Trying to keep warm in Detroit still.
I hear it's cold there.
Oh my God. Like
it's cool. It's not that cold. I walk to the gym, which is maybe about a mile and a half away from me. So I walk to the gym.
No, I'm not walking a mile. No, I'm barely reaching outside my door to the mailbox.
No,
it's like, and it can get really cold. Historically, it can get really, really cold in Detroit, like below 0 type cold. But I think we've been a little spoiled because the weather, the past winters, 6-7 years have been pretty mild. We haven't gotten like that, 10, 12 foot of snow type stuff. We haven't had that.
Okay.
So just all of these storms that have been hitting across the country, we keep getting like the after effects, the fringe effects, and people are like not happy. It's like, ugh.
And speaking of storms, the storm that we got going on now out in Memphis.
Yep.
And so, that's something we'll talk about.
Definitely.
And I wanted to discuss, we had Michelle Kofer on the show last week.
Yes. Great guest.
And she definitely brought a lot of the good things to the table. And I know a lot of people think about how, what type of traits they need to have to get to success and stuff and like that. So I wanted to, kind of talk about some stuff like that. Just, just me and you just talk about different things that we have done in our own personal lives to kind of help us move towards where we're trying to go and getting to where we want to be at. And just, helping people talk about that before we get into, we ain't got to talk about it that long, just before we get into the situation in Memphis. Right. But I was just thinking, I always used to tell Michael, you need to write down, you need to have a journal and write down your ideas and your goals and stuff like that. I find that's one thing that helps me out. But I also found that's one thing that a lot of successful people do.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way to keep track or measure your progress if you're not documenting that somewhere and writing it down, whether it's, in a handwritten journal, whether you're writing it down, online. But it's critically important to put those things down. You need to document, first of all, what your goals are, what your ambitions are, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to get, and then document your progress, what's working, where you having success, documenting those successes, and then where are your failures, where's there still room for improvement, where's there work to be done, maybe, some new strategies, to switch it up. So definitely I 110% agree that journaling and keeping track is definitely beneficial.
Yeah. And, and being consistent, being consistent with the journaling, being consistent with the things that you're trying to do, as I talk about in the book, and Think Success, take action, make sure you always taking action. And when you're taking action, you got to be consistent with that action. It can't be, it can't be one thing. It's like this show. You can't do one show and think everybody gonna watch it the first time. You gotta
Right.
continue to do it, continue to get better, continue to track what you're doing,
Right.
and staying consistent with it so that people
Yeah.
can see what you're doing, and then and you can see what you're doing and be happy with the success that you're getting.
Right. It's definitely a level of personal accountability. I think when you write things down, it's a way to hold yourself accountable to the standard, basically that you set for yourself, for the goals that you've set for yourself. But also to your point about, consistency, when you are trying to be consistent in thinking wealthy thoughts and implementing the plan that you have set out, or the strategy that you've laid out for yourself to get to that end goal, your results can be hit or miss. They'll be inconsistent if, again, you don't have a solid process. And, we keep saying you need to write these things down. You need to be able to look at them on a daily basis or a weekly basis, however you determine, you need to look at that.
Yeah.
But it's important and that you have in your head, my level of commitment to this plan is going to be dependent upon, my commitment to this process
Mm-hmm.
and different steps in that process. And like I said, documenting and journaling should be part of that process.
Yes, yes, yes. And also never stop learning. Always learning something new. Always trying to learn something new. Always reading. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, going to conferences, seminars.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of things. Never stop learning and keeping a mentor. Have a mentor. Or keeping somebody, at least somebody in your network that can teach you something.
I have a question for you. When we're talking about, this process, and, when we're talking about, trying different things and always learning,
Mhm.
how long do you give yourself, to learn? Like, it might not be beneficial to switch it up too much, if you know what I'm saying. But, what's a reasonable amount of time to give yourself to learn something, to apply something before you say,
So I think it depends. Okay, so
mhm,
let's say for instance, you're starting a business,
mhm,
and in that business, you need marketing, you need flyers, different stuff like that. You might need, like for me, uh,
mhm.
I can do I can go on Canva and create different things for marketing for my real estate business.
Is that an app or?
It's a website. It is an app. You can get it on as an app on your phone also, and they'll
Okay.
work together.
And what's it called?
So it's called Canva, Canva.com. Uh,
Okay.
it's uh put it lightly. I don't want to call it like I'm trying to diss it, but it's kind of like a poor man's Photoshop,
Oh,
because you can do a lot of stuff in there right there on that app,
mhm.
and you don't have to spend as much as you would spend to have Photoshop. Uh,
Mm,
and then Photoshop kind of takes it to another level too that
mhm.
does not. But I mean, it Canva does is very great. A lot of people use it.
Efficient.
Yeah,
Got it.
even if you don't pay for the subscription, I pay for the pro subscription for it,
Mhm.
because it works for me. But even if you don't pay for the subscription, it is a lot of stuff you can do in just a free
Got
portion.
it. Got
Uh,
it.
but like even in that, like you may not be I enjoy the artsy side of that and trying to figure out how to do that type of stuff.
Mhm.
So I enjoy that. So taking the time to learn that is fun.
Mhm.
It's something that was kind of I ain't gonna say easy to do, but something that I could kind of get into. I think if you learn it, if you're doing something and it's starting to get boring to you and it's not fun
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
becoming too much work, that may
Mhm.
be something you need to delegate to somebody else.
Got it.
But if it's something that you're enjoying doing, I can't really tell you how long you should take to do it. But I
Mhm.
can say, it's a book called The Outliers, where they talk about, and that's not the only book they talk about this in, but that's the one I'm thinking of right now.
Okay. And I've heard of that one.
Yes, Outliers. He talks about 10,000 hours to become great at something.
Wow.
So I'm not telling you to take 10,000 hours because everyone's not going to be great at everything. But if you're trying to get to a point where you're sufficient in it, you do have to spend time with it and try to get there. So I don't want to be the person to say how long should it take. I think it should take as long as you feel that you should take to make it work. Now, and the thing is, you have to be honest with yourself and know who you are. Like, if it's something that you really don't want to do, you need to find a way to delegate that or put that off on somebody else, because at that point it's becoming a burden and it's not helping you succeed in the rest of your business or the rest of whatever it is that you're trying to do.
So basically, with the 10,000 hours, we're talking about 416 days, roughly 417 days, which is a year and a little over a month. So like a year and not quite 2 months.
That's you're talking about 24 hours a day and staying in it for 24 hours a day. And that's not going to happen. So.
Right. But I'm just saying, if we're talking about, 24 hours, but realistically, I mean, if you're talking about a couple hours a day, then we're talking about, several years.
Yeah.
Several years.
Several years. You're talking about maybe 10, 15 years before you become great at it. But before that, you're good at it. And a lot of times, especially, we always make this joke, but in this era of time, it seems as though if you show up, you're doing better than most. So, back in the day, it was always, you got to be 10 times better. You got to be 10 times better. But now it's almost like all you got to do is come through the door and give a little bit of a damn.
Right.
And you should be okay. But if you're putting that time in, you'll get real efficient and sufficient at it. So,
it's interesting because I was actually having sort of having this conversation earlier today with a coworker, and we were talking about that from the standpoint of we're both new to the jobs that we're currently working, meaning that we've been working in these jobs for less than 6 months. And the point that he was making to me, I said, when you are learning and you're trying to become proficient, there is this thought, in your head that, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to make a mistake. And he was saying that on a scale of 1 to 100, saying that 100% is mastery. I've learned it. He said, when you get around to that 80, 85%, he said, you know what, at that point, it's okay to just go with it and make decisions. And if you make mistakes, it's okay. We can fix them.
Yeah.
Because he said that last kind of, 15, 20% seems to be challenging. And that can also be a point where you just can overthink things.
Yeah.
And go into a kind of paralysis when it comes to the action piece, when you talked about action. And,
I would say it's Colin Powell, the 60-40 rule.
Okay.
Once he has 60% of information, that's enough to start taking action. Once he has 60, because you can always go back and fix something. But if I got 60%, I believe it's 60. I think it's the 60-40 rule. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
I'm gonna make sure real quick because I don't want to quote it wrong.
Okay.
But I do believe that it's I think that was his rule. Yeah, Colin Powell. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's actually the 40-70 rule. Okay. So his thought process is you only need between 40 and 70% of the total information to make a decision.
Okay.
He said anything less than 40%, you're gonna make the wrong decision. And if you start looking, and the same thing as your friend just said, if you start looking at anything over 70%, you're not gonna make a decision because you're taking too long. You're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and I don't know if he had looked at the same,
Mhm.
that you're sharing, if he was aware of the same, but
Yeah,
I just thought that it was interesting, and I felt like it was very wise advice.
yeah,
Just kind of where I am, and he says, you know what, it's okay, go ahead, pull the trigger,
yeah,
and make the decision.
yeah.
Um, and especially as it relates to like project management, when you're managing projects and you have to make a lot of decisions,
Mhm.
even whether they're big decisions or a bunch of small decisions. But he was saying, you don't want to hold up the process, and so go ahead, pull that trigger, and like you said, we can adjust to fix whatever we need to fix,
Yeah, you can
or
always
if
go
things are
back.
moving forward.
Yeah, you can always go back and figure some things out later on. But
Mhm,
it's definitely important to make those decisions,
mhm,
because if you don't make decisions, as we were talking about analysis paralysis, you're gonna sit there
mhm,
mulling over, okay, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? And
mhm.
you're getting more and more information as you're doing that. And as you get more and more information, sometimes the information starts butting against each other. Like,
Yes.
I would have done it this way, but this saying not to do it this way. And then
Mhm,
I would have done it that way, but this saying don't do it that way. And so now
mhm.
you got too much in your head.
Right.
You start moving, you start
Mhm,
figuring out which way to move,
mhm,
because there's more than one way to skin a cat. That's what they always used to say.
mhm,
So you wanna keep going the way that it's gonna work for you, because
mhm,
while there's certain habits that you have to keep to be
mhm,
successful, there's no one way to
mhm.
success.
Yeah.
But there are certain habits and certain traits that most successful people
Mhm,
have, and one of them is with the decisiveness, being decisive, and figuring out, you know, to take that action, and being decisive to take that action once they get just enough information to say, okay, I can pull the trigger on that,
got it.
or not pull it, or they got enough information to know not to pull the trigger. I mean, that's the thing too. You got to know what the information is telling you. Is it telling me to go forward, or is it telling me no, I
Mhm.
don't do that at all? So that's the one thing.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we have to do with that. So yeah, I think it's always good to look at some of those traits. When we was talking about the 10,000 hours, Kobe Bryant used to talk
Right.
about waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Wow.
no matter what he was doing, waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and getting out there to practice, and then that gives him 2 or 3 hours above everybody else, because he's up at 3 o'clock. He get to the gym at 4. He practiced from 4 to 6. Then he gets to go home and do whatever he needs to do. Then he's back at the gym at like 8 or 9.
Mhm.
Then he gets to go to lunch and do whatever other stuff he needs to do. And then he's back at the gym at 1 or 2 o'clock. And so when you start talking about you in the gym 3 times a day for 2 or 3 hours a day, instead of once or twice a day for 2 or 3 hours a day, he's already ahead of you. He already ahead of the game. And those hours that he woke up early is the reason why he could get ahead of the game. And so if you go get to the 10,000 hours, you're not gonna get as much rest as you probably wanted to get, or you're gonna have to figure out a way to get you some cat naps in the middle of the day, so that you can get some things done, get the things done that you're trying to get done. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely is again, when you are working to implement a plan or a strategy, building your business, these are definitely things that you want to have in your toolbox, and you want to be implementing these. You want to have a mentor,
Mhm.
because in addition to, like I said, having things written down for yourself, you still need external accountability as well. And to have a person or people with the expertise that you want to have, people who have succeeded, who have achieved where you're trying to get to, It is always greatly beneficial to have folks like that as resources to be able to go to ask questions,
Mhm.
to check in, to give you advice as part of your network. And that was the thing that we had talked about, on prior shows about having a network, um,
Yes.
and what a powerful boost that can be, especially when you're building your business.
Yes, it can. Yes, definitely a powerful boost when building your business. So yeah, that's probably, of course, there's so many more traits that you
Hmm.
can find, but and talk about. But
Hmm.
let's move on. Let's talk about what's kind of pertinent and what's on everybody's hearts and minds right now. Um, the situation that's going on in Memphis.
Yeah, the timing of this, it's just, what can I say? There's never, um, these are the types of things that you just don't want to have happen. These are not the types of things that you want to be talking about. It is horrific for any mother
Mhm.
to be bearing her child, but to be dealing with what the family of Tyre Nichols is dealing with. That's a horrible situation.
So, did you watch the video?
I have seen some of the
Okay.
video, have not seen all of the video.
Okay.
But
Same
I
here.
hmm,
Same here.
but I think that for me as a mother and hearing his mother talk about what she was told versus what she saw when she walked into the room and saw her son
Hmm.
on life support. Um, I've seen those photos. Um, we've seen videos of this young man when he was alive, living his life, enjoying his life. And then to see the video footage of him being brutalized and brutally murdered at the hands of police, but the fact that these are Black police officers just adds a whole different level of sickness and sadness and anger to an already horrific situation. And the fact that this all comes as we're coming into the month of February, which is Black History Month.
Hmm.
Today is the eve of February 1st, and tomorrow marks the beginning of Black History Month. And so for this to be happening right now, it's a sobering time for us as a country. It's a sobering time for us as a community. We have a lot to think about.
I
You
want you to, if you get a chance to start kind of looking back,
hmm
over the last maybe 5-10 years.
hmm
You just 5-10 years and start looking back at the
hmm
timing of how some of this stuff happens.
hmm
Um, Always right around February, March, and April.
mm. Wow.
Always seems to be around February, March, and April. Not saying that police don't do stuff all the rest of the year, and not saying that people don't get shot and killed all
hmm
year. And some of it be right, some of it be wrong. But
hmm
the ones that always seem to be the bigger ones always seems to happen around February, March, April.
mm.
Um, so April is a very interesting time because April is also Hitler's birthday.
Mm.
And so you always seem to have a lot of weird stuff happen around there when it comes to um,
hmm
brutality of Black people around April. Uh,
hmm
but again, when we start talking about this one, we're talking about 5 Black police officers. We found out that there's one white police officer that was there,
hmm
and you got the one cop there, the one white cop there. You got 5 police officers, and so I found it interesting that they were charged immediately, fired immediately.
Mm.
But this white police officer was not charged immediately, was not fired immediately, and still has not been fired, and still is under investigation and has not been charged. He is
Mm.
on suspension, and I believe it's paid suspension.
Mm.
So when people trying to excuse this out of the bounds of race, still can't excuse it because of those types of things that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that now that we're starting to get, don't know how true it is yet because it hasn't really hit mainstream, but all over the internet, we're starting to find out that I believe the Demetrius cop, the guy whose name is Demetrius, the police officer who's Demetrius,
Mm-hmm.
to find out that, well, at least this is the rumor that Tyre Nichols was dating his ex-girlfriend and baby mama. And he was upset about that.
Wow.
So that's something that's being circulated. Again, I don't know how true that is, but I will tell you this: this is just me. When I first heard it, I never really get surprised when I see stuff like this anymore. I expect it. I hate to say it that way, but I expect it to happen. But when I saw that it was 5 black police officers, I did get a little surprised. But then I went in my head and I said, "This ain't regular. This ain't no pulling over somebody and they were scared. They knew this guy." I said this. I was like, they knew this guy. And in my mind, I thought it was something to do with drugs. But the more they start talking about the guy and talking about the stuff he was into, I was like, maybe it wasn't drugs then. I was like, the only other thing I could think of is they know the guy is something crooked going on with it. It just didn't seem to me that the routine, I'm gonna stop you on the traffic stop and then you get scared and we decide to shoot you or we start to beat you up because you ran away. That didn't seem right. It didn't seem, that's not the narrative. And to me, knowing the way we are, that just didn't sit well with me. So that story, if that's what it is, more likely that I would believe that story if that's what they come out and find out. But if that's what it is, then we got other issues that we got to think about and talk about with the fact that those police officers had they had a green light to go and do some of the things they did because we find out they were in a group called Scorpion. And so Scorpion, I know everyone in Detroit remember the Big Four.
Yep.
And so Scorpion is like that. I think down here in Atlanta, they had a crew called the Red Dog. And so in LAPD had their crew. I can't remember the name of their crew. LAPD had their crew. Oakland City had a crew of cops that would go around and beat up people back. That's what started the Panthers. So you have these road crews that they put them in predominantly black neighborhoods.
But are they rogue though?
And so when we say rogue, I'm gonna say rogue in a sense of what we think is rogue.
That they are not.
That they are.
They have a different set of rules, or basically.
And so I say rogue in that sense, but the police know what's going on, and they know why they're there, and many times they are there to put in work and put in work in a less judicious way.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting thing. I feel for that family.
And the Scorpion, just to note, and I'm sure this is already out there, but that the Scorpion Squad has been formally disbanded. So the police department has stated.
That's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. And to your point, the other squads that you mentioned have also, technically don't exist.
Yeah, I look at it like this. They technically they don't exist on paper anymore, but they're you can't. I know a lot of good brothers that's police officers. I do. One of my very good friends is a police officer. and I won't say what his position is on here,
Mm-hmm.
but he's one of my very good friends, and 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 as far as I know, I never known him to do anything
Mm-hmm.
way as a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
But he's one of the lights that I find that tends to be around a bunch of darkness. And so when I say a bunch of darkness, I'm not saying all cops are bad or
Mm-hmm.
like that. What I am saying though is that it doesn't matter what organization you have, you're only gonna have about a good 1 or 2% that want to do the job the right way.
Mm.
Got another about 8% that's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that the job is done. And then you got probably another, you probably got a big percentage in the middle that's just gonna go either way.
Mm.
And then you got those bad apples, which is probably another 10, 15, 20%
Or more.
or more. And so
Mm.
then when you start talking about those people in the middle, they gonna go whichever side they on, whichever side. If I'm riding with a bad cop, I'm gonna act bad with him. If I'm riding with a good cop, I'm gonna act good with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's they don't, they don't really count because they're gonna do whatever it is that's going on around them. They don't have the type of
Going
leadership.
with the flow.
They're gonna go with the flow. And so it's sad because that's not just in police force. That's in a lot of
Right.
a lot of places. I mean, in a lot of public service places,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have some people that firefighters. You're gonna have some people that want to go in fight fire. You're gonna have some that's trying to find every way they can find to not go and fight a fire.
Right.
And then you got the people that's in the middle. That's like, well, depending on where I'm at. If I'm with a bunch of people that want to fight fire, boom,
Mm-hmm.
let's do it. If I'm not with a bunch of people that don't want to fight fire, I'm rolling with them. So that they don't have a bone
Mm-hmm.
that's like I'm gonna do my job regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably are the worst of that group
Right.
the group. You know what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
they can be easily swayed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start talking about reform and people want to reform the police and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you can't really reform something that started off bad.
And that was one of the things, that I felt like was important. Right after the incident happened, and these videos were released, we are also, during the month of February, recognizing 50 years of rap music being an art form.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that PBS has a series featuring Chuck D of Public Enemy.
Yeah, he got a series about the history of hip hop or something like that.
Right. And so, just seeing that kind of brought back some memories, because when I was in college, one of actually my first job started out as an internship in PR.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working for a PR agency here in Detroit. And one of the events that I worked on was a big rap concert down at the former Joe Louis Arena, featuring Chuck D, Public Enemy, EPMD, gosh, who else? I want to say it was De La Soul, and then DJ Jazzy Jeff from the Fresh Prince.
Okay.
But all those guys came to town. It was the first time I had ever been around any rappers. Was totally head over heels for Chuck D. Just love that brother. I mean, he was so clean. I mean, just so clean in person. Just so neat, well manicured, very well spoken. And the thing that I remember was he had on this red tracksuit, head to toe, and had this huge boombox that he carried around on his shoulder. Literally the whole time. And I was just, I never seen anything like that in my whole life. And, conservative church girl, my parents were just losing it. Like, oh my God, are you serious? And just hanging out with these guys. But it was such a cool experience because I had never been exposed to rap music before. So it's my, first time hearing that as an art form. But, as a result, went on to, listen to a number of artists, KRS-One, Kool Moe D, like I said, listen to those guys, Big Daddy Kane. But KRS-One has a song that, and I don't know what year it came out, but The Sounds of the Police.
Okay.
And I was listening to that song after all of this video with Tyre Nichols came out, and listening to the chorus of that song where he says, overseer, officer,
overseer, officer.
Yeah. And, when you talk about the origin of the police force in this country, that's the origin of the police force.
The origin was always to stop Negroes, niggas.
That's how, exactly.
It was always to stop people, black people. And so you have a
fear, brutality, violence, intrinsic and inherent to.
You have an institution that
the modern police force.
You have an institution that was started, in hatred, basically. And the only way to fix that, as with anything, if your foundation is cracked, you cannot build. It don't matter how much you build on top of it, how much you try to reform everything that's on top of that foundation. If that foundation is cracked, the house is going to fall at some point. It's going to always have issues. It's always going to be leaning.
It's going to be condemned.
And so the thing is that you have to start over. You have to tear everything down.
Yep.
Rebuild the foundation. And the thing, no one wants to hear that, because then that means that's just not the police force. That's everything. At that point.
And that's been the case in this country, Randy. I mean, that's been the case. And to your point, that's the thing that nobody wants to hear. That's the thing that no one wants to talk about. We have quote unquote laws in this country, legislation that should be abolished.
Yes.
It should be abolished. It has no place in modern society. It is harmful. It's destructive. It's divisive, and it needs to go.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about that, it invokes such a feeling of fear. Some people just lose their minds.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just really lose their minds, and just feel like, well, there will be chaos. No, here's the thing. Replace that with something that works. Replace that with something that is inclusive, that is equitable, that is beneficial to all, and not the opposite.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like we need to go there. And until we're willing to go there, I mean, when you like I said, this situation should be forcing us to stop and really reassess who we are and what we're doing, what needs to change. We look at Black History Month and we talk about Martin Luther King. We talk about Malcolm X. You talked about the Black Panthers. It's interesting when you talk about the Black Panthers because they got a bad rap. The things that history says about them, what history says about Huey P. Newton, Angela Davis, and those guys, it's not accurate.
No,
because the Panthers really and truly wanted to make things fair and equitable for their communities, the communities in which they live. That was the thing that they were fighting against, was injustice.
As I always say, to make balance, to have balance, unless everybody decides to come to the middle to have balance. If you're going to be this far over here and to have balance, I got to be this far over here. So if you're going to come into my neighborhood and beat me just because I'm black, then I have to be like, you can't come in my neighborhood and shoot at you because you're a white cop. To make it balanced, in order for us to come to some type of balance. So until everyone comes to a middle point, it's going to always be these extremes. And so, and I mean, society has done a good job of keeping black people, and black people themselves have done a good job of keeping them going to extreme. I mean, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I commend them, because I don't. But no way I'm going on TV and telling anybody to do anything peaceful if it's one of my kids. I'm not, Crump, Attorney Crump can't come and tell me, because all Attorney Crump don't win no cases. Attorney Crump just win money for people, plus winning money for himself. And so at the end of the day, him coming and telling people, you got to make sure you tell the people to be nonviolent and blah blah blah. No, I don't want you to be nonviolent, because I'm not. Because if they get off, I'm not going to be nonviolent. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not right. And since you went to an extreme, you're making me have to go to an extreme, unless there's going to be true justice. And oh yeah, so I got this book right here. It's called the United Independent Compensatory Code System and Concept. So it's by a guy named Neely Fuller. And he has a definition for justice that I always thought was a very good definition. Definition says, the word should be used to mean balance between people, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most help. That's justice to him. And that's the thing that we don't have. We don't have justice because the people that need the most help are not getting the most help.
Right.
And there is no balance.
Right.
And so, and the reason why there's no balance is because there's never been any balance. You're consistently trying to build on top of something that's never been right. And so it's like we're trying to build a house on a round ball, and it's always going to be teetering on the edge of destruction. And like I said, we have done a good job as a society from not totally going there. And I would like to say, more than anything, is probably black people have done a good job of not going all the way there, because at the end of the day, the things that we have seen and the things that we constantly see on TV, as I call it, death porn, is just constantly playing it in front of your face, constantly playing it, letting you see this is what we'll do to you. Those types of things either gonna do one or two things. It's gonna give you PTSS, and you're gonna be one or two, where you're gonna be shell shocked, or you're gonna want to go fight. And what I found is the majority of us are shell shocked, and the ones that want to go fight, those that shell shock talk us down. So
yeah, I just, for me, as I have reflected upon the situation and continue to reflect on it, I feel that we need to take some sort of action, as it relates to pushing for changes in legislation, and really demanding that those things happen, because we have sat back, we've had conversation about the police force and saying, well, there needs to be better training. There needs to be sensitivity training. We need to have training about how to be less brutal. And we're not seeing any changes. To me, this problem is continuing to worsen. the incidents that have gotten national attention prior to this have involved white officers.
Yeah.
And now, to me, this has spread to Black officers.
But I don't think it's spread. I think it's always been this way. And so, and just, even though this is a movie,
Mm-hmm.
art imitates life. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So in Boys in the Hood,
Mm-hmm.
Trey and them got pulled over by the white cop was being mean, but it was the black cop that was taking it to the next level, pulled the gun out on him, said
Mm-hmm.
like one of them rolling 60s, you know what I'm saying? He's like, oh, you think you tough?
Mm-hmm.
And he told him he'd shoot his head clean off, so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it is, as
Mm-hmm.
Cube said in Fuck the Police, black police showing out for the white cop. So a lot of times that's what it is. It's once you're in a system,
Mm-hmm.
whatever light, a lot of times, like I said, whatever lights you might have had,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, in the Bible, it tells you to stray from evil.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why he tells you stray from evil, because if you're around evil, you're most likely going to get consumed by it.
You talked earlier about, having friends who are police officers, having a close friend who's a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have several family members who are in law enforcement. And I have several friends, really good friends, who are also in law enforcement and have been for many years. A couple of them have retired. And I've had conversations with them about how do you do that, every day? How do you deal with the stresses that come with your job and having to serve and protect? A lot of the stuff that they see is wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that we've ever seen or been exposed to. A lot of it, of course, is very dangerous. And I feel like for police officers and for people who are working in law enforcement, I think there's a level of trauma that happens whether you want it to or not, whether you're willing to acknowledge it or not. There's a level of trauma that occurs the longer that you stay in that profession, in that job. And I don't think that we do enough in this country to address that issue, and to really, counsel police officers, and force them to have conversations and check-ins, and mental health evaluations, because some of these folks should not be on active duty because they just,
right.
they're mentally, they don't have the capacity. I know many of them think that they do, but if you really sit down and evaluate and talk to them, they need to be, they need a period of just rest to be decommissioned and to, not be in active duty and be responsible for those responsibilities. They don't need to have those responsibilities that are critical to being a police officer every day.
Well, getting the counseling is hard. You would have to make you have to put something in writing and something in your bylaws and
that's what I'm saying. We need legislation
that makes them go.
Yes.
Because the thing is, as I can tell you, as a public servant that works around
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of males that consider themselves,
Mm-hmm.
man of all men.
Mm-hmm.
If a person comes in to talk to us, many
Mm-hmm.
times we're not going to listen to them, because
Mm-hmm.
once we realize you've never done what we deal with, you never dealt with
Mm-hmm.
what we deal with, you never done what we do.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to get counselors that actually have done that job,
Mm-hmm.
because most guys are not going to listen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us are not. Most people that see
Mm-hmm.
gruesome and
Mm-hmm.
stuff and do this wildly
Mm-hmm.
coyote dangerous stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us are not going to listen to somebody that just came in
Mm-hmm.
and they don't, and they trying to relate to us, but they can't relate to us because they've never done what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so even from fire service to police to EMS,
Mm-hmm.
things that you see doing those jobs,
Mm-hmm.
they affect you. And so many times our best counseling is with each other. But a lot of times, like I said, if you're dealing with other people that got their own issues
Mm-hmm.
and they're not counseling you in a way that's going to help you to
Mm-hmm.
fix and go back on the street, especially as a police officer, go back on the street and not
Mm-hmm.
kill somebody,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have problems. But again, I think when you're dealing with, if it is true that this guy killed this or beat, I'm not going to even think that he went there to kill a guy. I think they went there to rough him up and it got out of hand.
So let me ask you this. So are you saying that this was not an actual legitimate police stop, traffic stop, that they actually were out here cruising around looking for this guy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's this was a this is the rumor is this was a hit. But I don't think they was trying to kill him. I don't know. I can't say that. I can say
Yeah.
that I can't even say what the
Mm-hmm.
rumor is if it's true, because that's not what we're hearing on
Mm-hmm.
mainstream TV. This is
Mm-hmm.
or mainstream media. This is
Right.
underground media that we're hearing this from.
Right.
Many times underground media is right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
this is many times mainstream media does not get it until 2 or 3, 4 days later. I
Well,
would
and a lot of times, again, it's just the recycling. When we talk about
yeah,
mainstream media, a lot of it is just recycling of information.
yeah,
Because you are owned by some wealthier individuals, and people have their own reasons and their own interest that they are trying to protect. And sometimes there's just an unwillingness to touch and go deep and do the deep dive on what's really going on here, what really happened here.
yeah.
That type of journalism is the exception rather than the rule.
Well, I will say this: I'm glad wasn't so far we haven't seen a bunch of crazy riots, in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
I hate I I don't I hate that they tear up their own neighborhoods a lot of times. Not that
Absolutely.
it's not that they most likely don't own anything in that neighborhood, but the things that's in that neighborhood services that neighborhood. And so when it's tore up, a lot of times it never comes back. And so now
Mm-hmm.
you have zones in zones in those black neighborhoods now that
Mm-hmm.
don't have grocery stores or the corner store or whatever it is that was
And
burned.
and Detroit is a prime
Yeah,
example
Detroit
of
is an
that.
example of that.
Yeah.
And so that's my only thing about it. To me, if you mad, go to the source. Go where those cops that live at
Mm-hmm.
and do your work there. Talk to them. And I ain't telling you, but march outside their house, march in those neighborhoods. A lot of times, those people in that neighborhood start getting them together. Like
Mm-hmm.
y'all got to do better. You know what I'm saying? You gotta take it home instead of taking it away from home.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And take it home to them. And
Mm-hmm.
marching at the precinct is cool, but that's still in your neighborhood. And so when it gets out of hand, it's gonna tear up your neighborhood. But if you go to their neighborhood and you go there right, it may cause some different thing. They may change their mind, because many major cities, the police
Mm-hmm.
don't even live
Mm-hmm.
cities that they
Yeah. But if you just show up and stand outside
yeah
on the sidewalk,
yeah
I was listening to your single, and we were talking about this before we came on the air. I was listening to your single, Brianna. which was a rap that you did under your Infame moniker. And you talk about.
So the album is named Informe.
Oh, is the okay?
Yeah, the album is named.
And so, you talk about Breonna Taylor, her death, and you know, in that chorus, one of the things that you reference is, you talk about Breonna Taylor and Emmett Till, and how no one could say that their lives were worth more than building a wall.
Yeah, you know, I said, how can you tell me that her life was, or that a wall was more important than her life? That her life was less important than Mike Vick's dogs. It's just the thought process of that those guys, when they charged them for shooting through the wall. They didn't charge them for shooting her. So please tell me how her life was less important than the wall. How it was less important than Mike Vick's dogs. And I went to Mike Vick's dogs just because in my mind, we did a lot of talking about Michael Vick's dogs and put him in jail for that. But they didn't even put these boys in jail for killing that girl. And so, so I'm trying to, we in the, that's why I say, Breonna Taylor, Emmett Till, we still in the same shit. Because we are. I mean, it's just consistently the same thing keeps happening over and over again. And we live in an insane society because the definition of insanity is what?
To keep doing the same thing, expecting a different outcome.
So we live in an insane society. We live in a society of criminality. We live in a society that's what works. And they'll play this game like we are civil and we are socialized, but there is no socialization when you are you are only, I don't know, I can't remember the numbers, but we have the most people in jail of any industrialized country in the world. We got the most people in jail. We got the most guns and the most gun violence. And you got a lot of people that run around and say, I need my gun to hunt. But I can tell you, I work around a bunch of people with guns and they talk about hunting, but they also talk about if somebody come in their house, what they're gonna do to them.
And so that is also, my comment.
Who
are you hunting?
Yeah.
Who are you hunting? Let's be clear. My brother is former military. I got other relatives that are former military. I know folks that are experts in weaponry, guns, rifles, you name it. I grew up in the South. My grandfather hunted. My uncles hunted. My dad hunted. Real hunters and hunting is an art form, and there's a humane way to hunt.
Yeah.
Okay. To kill an animal. Because again, with respect and understanding that life is sacred, and even when Native Americans and folks again who hunt the right way will tell you you're not shooting a deer with an assault rifle. Sorry, because
you tear all the meat.
You can't eat that meat.
Yeah, you got all types of bullet holes in the meat, all types of buckshots in the meat.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't even eat that meat after that. You just wasted it.
You have to kill that animal in a specific way so that you don't damage the meat.
Yeah.
that you're trying to eat. Because if you kill it wrong, some animals, if you kill them in the wrong way, you release different hormones and those things in the body, and you're unable to consume that meat.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I want to say to these folks who are saying, well, I want my guns to hunt, my head doesn't screw on. People's heads out here do not screw on. Come again. Come with something better. And I would appreciate honesty. Just say,
so that you can shoot people.
Just say, I want my gun because I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
For these reasons. And I want to shoot somebody.
And still to protect your house, you don't necessarily need who's coming to your house that you need to protect it from AR. At that point, you're telling me you must be in a gang.
Let's be honest.
You must be Bloods and Crips. You must be you know, you must be in some type of gang.
Give me
you a mafia or something.
I want the statistics on how many home invasions have been halted or stopped because someone shot their AK. The numbers aren't there to support that statement. Because the numbers are not there to support that statement.
Because you can shoot, you ain't got to shoot an AK. If you got, again, you only need that type of weaponry unless you're doing something that supports that type of weaponry. You need an army when you're doing stuff that you need an army for. That's army type. I see taking that over. Point. I see having that for the army.
And that's my point.
Having that for the household. And, you know, again, a lot of people like to have, you know, a lot of people that for many men and some women too, but many men, it makes them feel like a man.
Listen, those are weapons of death.
Yeah.
Those are weapons of death. Okay. I have talked to people who, again, experts in weapons, experts in ammunition, and they have all said the same thing. When you're shooting with those types of bullets from assault rifles, it's not designed for the person being shot at to survive. It's a weapon of death. It's a weapon of war. That is what those weapons were designed for. They should not be sold to the general public.
Yeah.
They should not be in the hands of any homeowner as a weapon to protect your home or your homestead or your property. Those are not weapons that should be in circulation outside of the military. Yeah. End of discussion. And furthermore, not only do we need to have legislation that halts the sale of assault weapons to the general public, period, but anybody who has an assault weapon, you need to turn them in. They need to be collected. They need to be taken. And fine, you can take them to the military and put them in a storehouse and use them whenever you go to war. But they should not be in anybody's house. They need to be collected, and you need to find people who have them. You need to find them in any way. You need to find them heavily until they turn those weapons in. Because until we do at least that, we're not going to see a decrease in this loss of life, these mass shootings, these tragedies that continue to happen.
Well, again, because I have two guns, but they guns. You know, I'm not out here trying to. It is not my wish to kill.
Nobody's trying to take your guns, but yeah, I am.
It's not my wish to kill anyone, so I don't need an AR-15.
I am advocating that we take assault weapons.
I don't, I don't
Nobody's
need
trying
an
to take
assault
your
rifle,
regular gun, but I think we need to take the assault weapons. We
but
definitely need
I
to take
do,
those.
I agree with you, and I think that the problem again is we live in a society that is built on criminality and violence. Always has been, and until we change that thought process, we will always have that. I always mess with people because of course, especially with the job I have, we see people we see people shot.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see them getting shot normally.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that, but we do see people shot. We roll up on people that's been shot and they're dead. We try to bring people back sometimes that just got shot, and try to save people life that been shot and they they teetering between life and death. Um, but there's a difference when you actually see it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if you see something like that and you still had a thought process that's what you that you had a thought process that you can play with those words like that. To me, there's some type of psychopathy. There's something psychopathic with you. You're not really thinking straight because there's something different. Your humanity is
Well,
gone. You
I
can't.
think that there is
It's okay.
again, a level of disassociation
Mm-hmm.
from reality. I think that um, fear is something that drives people to be irrational and not to make rational decisions and have rational thought processes. I think we don't talk enough in this country about the danger of allowing your fear. Again, we talk on this show every week about um, how do you harness your thoughts and have a mindset that is going to cultivate the type of positive and how do I say productive lifestyle that you want to have. But we also talk about what happens when your fear and a unhealthy mindset takes control.
Mm-hmm.
It inhibits your ability to have wealthy thoughts. It
Yeah.
inhibits your ability to be productive and to
Mm-hmm.
have those successful outcomes that you're working for. So I would just challenge folks who are listening. I'm not saying that you have to agree with us,
No.
but I do encourage you to think about the things that we are talking about, that we're discussing on this program, and to just think about what we're saying and to challenge yourself. Do an inventory. You've talked about doing the inventory of your friends,
Mm-hmm.
your network.
Mm-hmm. You got to
Is
do the
is
inventory of yourself too.
of yourself. Is it conducive to having the type of successful, productive life that you want to have?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the one thing I believe about wealthy thoughts is this: that you can have you can have your own thought. Everyone's not gonna think the same, and I don't expect everybody to think the same. But what I do expect,
Mhm.
to me, you don't have a wealthy thought if you can't be open minded, if you can't listen to what somebody else has to say, and at least be able to disagree agreeably or agreeably disagree, however you say it. But you have to be able to say, okay, I don't agree with that, but we can
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
move, what I'm saying, in a certain way. And many
Mhm.
times I think that, like you said, the fear, the false evidence appearing real,
Mhm.
it makes you think that something is coming after you and it's not. And many of us, when that's happening,
Mhm.
like you said, we do a lot of crazy stuff.
Mhm.
And some of it is going out buying a bunch of guns, going out trying to um, weatherproof your house for something, get your house ready for the zombie attack. get
And,
your
and here's the thing, and like I said, in understanding there is a significant and very real difference between guns and assault rifles.
Mhm.
I think it's important to call things by their proper name. And a gun is a gun, but an assault rifle is a weapon of
Of
war.
yeah,
It's a
a
weapon
weapon
of
of
mass
mass
destruction.
destruction.
Yes.
Yeah. And so my thing is this, and so I'm gonna say this and be this. I agree with you totally. But until they get laws that stop them,
Absolutely.
stuff like that, if you are a sensible person and you're not trying to go out here and kill somebody, you might need to have one just in case the people that's trying to kill somebody, you can fight back. Because at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that you just we get these things out of fear, but at the end of the day, you do have to have somebody that has a sensible mind with the same weapons with the people that don't have sensible minds, so that we can fight back if we need to.
Yeah.
My thing is you have to make sure that you are out training how to use a gun, training yourself how to hunt, training yourself how to do certain things just because it's good to know. It's good to have that. It's good to be able to go and learn how to take your boys or take your daughters or whatever out and teach them how to fish, how to get
Listen, to be
their own
equipped.
teach them how to garden and build their own little garden. Those things are just not because we worried about if the world gonna end, but just because it's good to know just in general.
To be
It's good
equipped with
to
a
be able to do
purpose is important. Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So and
Absolutely.
then it definitely helps you with other skill sets in life.
You got me want to go out here and dig up my backyard in the wintertime. Get ready for the apocalypse.
So
Right.
I'm not
Right.
expecting the zombie apocalypse to happen. I'm not expecting the United States to end no time while I'm alive. Not saying that it won't happen ever, but I'm just saying I'm not expecting that to happen no time while I'm alive. I expect us to go through good times, bad times. Right now, we're in the middle time where some people think it's good, some people think it's bad, but I can tell you we're most likely heading towards a recession. We're going towards some winter seasons, and in those winter seasons, this is the time for people to get their mind in a certain spot. Typically, when recession hits, millionaires are made.
Well, we can definitely, I think for next week, we can definitely talk about that next week. I think we should let that be next week's topic, to talk about that, how millionaires are made during the recession. The principles of Joseph. His brothers sold him into slavery. They meant it for evil. God meant it for good. But I'm with you 110% on that. I think that is very important. One of the things that I read this week was that one of our top generals in the country, is predicting a potential war with China in 2025. And so, not sure if people are reading that or aware of it, but, to your point, things are cyclical. We are dealing with definitely some economic stresses right now, some socioeconomic stresses. We're dealing with racial and ethnic stresses. I know we're at the end of our time, but just a couple of comments to close it out.
That's the great thing about having your own stuff. You can look in when you want to.
Definitely want to encourage folks to watch the 50 Years of Rap with Chuck D on PBS. Catch that if you can. I think it's an excellent series to understand rap music and the message in rap. it's a great educational opportunity for young people, but just for anybody. You talked earlier about learning and having an open mind, and I think that it's important, when you open your mind and when you listen, you learn. The other thing that I want to say is pray for justice. You know,
Yes.
let's pray for justice. Um, the
Well, those
situation with
black police officers going to jail, so we ain't got to worry about that.
um, the even though, you know, they're going to be prosecuted and go to jail, it's not going to bring that young man back.
Never, no.
We will forever have etched in our minds yet another horrific scene of this man crying out for his mother, begging for his life. And I just want to encourage folks who are listening, realize the sacredness and the sanctity of life. All life, you know, human life. You know, you talked about Michael Vick's dogs earlier, you know, and we have folks in this country who love their pets and their animals more than they love human beings. Life is sacred, and we need to care more about each other. We need to check on each other. And I just encourage folks, you know, during the month of February, just really reflect on Black history. You know, our history as a people, the injustices that we've suffered. You know, people say a lot about Black folks, and, you know, why are they angry? Why are they hurt? You know, why do they want financial compensation? Um, Read up, you know, read our story right now in Florida. Um, I think today this went into effect. Teachers have to basically remove their personal libraries in their classrooms because Governor DeSantis is saying he does not want them to have any books or literature or reading material that has not been vetted by a quote unquote certified librarian. Ridiculousness, ridiculousness, nonsense.
Anything to keep white supremacy going. And so I was gonna say this, and I meant to say it earlier. It's just uh, I brought up Nellie Fuller earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and the one thing that Nellie Fuller always talks about is if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is, how it works, everything else that you think you know will only confuse you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what white supremacy is all about: confusing you, keeping you ignorant, keeping you not knowing what's going on. Um, the other thing that white supremacy likes to do is play both sides of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll march on one side for Black Lives Matter, but on the other side, I'll make laws that will keep Black people and other people of color and other minorities from being able to catch up with my white counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or my
Mm-hmm.
white peers, I'm sorry for them, my white peers. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so, what we have to understand is that we are playing in a game that we are behind.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime we seem to be catching up, the game changes.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that we're doing the right things. But
Mm-hmm.
I always will tell you, if your oppressor agrees with what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
probably the wrong thing. It's probably not going to work. Not going to get what you want. So if your oppressor is telling you, come on, let's go march and let's just be peaceful and it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be okay, that means they know that that's not going to work. They just using that to keep you appeased. They're going to put a couple people in jail. They'll get a family some money, and then we'll leave it alone for a while until the next one happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens. And it continues to keep doing that, and it continues to do that. And as I said before, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. and expecting a different result. And so that's why I say we live in an insane society.
Mm-hmm.
Of us do insane things because we keep doing the same thing. We keep doing the same thing that Martin Luther King was doing in the 60s, in the 50s. And even Martin Luther King near the end said, my dream has turned into somewhat a nightmare. Even Martin Luther King said, in many ways, I feel I have integrated my people into a burning house. And so when you start thinking about those things, you have to start thinking about what are you going to do for you as a Black person. When I speak about wealthy thoughts, of course, I'm talking about anybody. Anybody can be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I start talking about my people, Black people.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start thinking about how to become successful so that we can bring the rest of our people with us and teach them how to be successful. You have to do the things like EYL does, Earn Your Leisure. We have to start doing those types of things and talking about those type of things and helping each other to get to
Mm-hmm.
the next level, networking with each other, you
Mm-hmm.
know, working together for a like-minded cause of Black people getting out of being poor, getting out of the slums,
Mm-hmm.
coming and becoming what a lot of us have, but there's still much more that have not.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to do our best at trying to get that together. So um, that's where I'm at with it. I think we have to work together and do those things. So
Mm-hmm.
Tracy, tell the people what you got going on and what you
Oh wow. Working on a book project.
okay.
Um, that started. I talked about that a while ago, but you and I had some conversation, gave me some great advice. So
Mhm.
just trying to plug away at that.
Okay.
So that's underway. Um, Getting ready to launch, hopefully next month, podcast.
Okay.
Um, Tossing around names for that.
Okay.
We're gonna come up with something cool. Um, but hoping to launch that in the month of March. And I think those two things right now, I'm kind of coming to an end of some of the volunteer work that I've been doing, but also just kind of to launch some other new projects. I mean, when you look at the company that I keep, look, what firefighter, rapper, realtor, entrepreneur. I mean, you wear so many hats.
we
Um,
try, we
but
try. I learned a lot from you guys a long time ago. So
yeah,
that's how
but it's
stay calm.
it's fun to definitely be in your company and be in a network of folks who have um wealthy thoughts, not only wealthy thoughts, but wealthy um, practices and processes that they're implementing. And when you're hanging out with folks like that, they keep you motivated.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
when you're talking, you're thinking, and you're like, okay, I can do this. I should do this. And, you know, those creative juices get flowing. So I'm excited to be doing these things. Anybody who wants to reach out, hit me up on Facebook, Trayce Bell Brooks. You can find me on Instagram, Tracy_B, TRAYCE_B. Also on Twitter. So, you want to talk, hit me up, comments. I'm always interested to hear and know what folks are thinking and what y'all like to talk about and what you'd like to hear more about.
Well, so as for me, started working on the Wealthy Thoughts book. We I got a lot of work to do with that, and I have some other things going on. So that's probably going to push my timetable back for the Wealthy Thoughts because I have some other things going on with work that I need to make sure that I get done. So and make sure I do well with that. So it's going to push me back on some of my projects that I'm doing as far as books and stuff like that for myself. Just not push me, not make me stop, but just kind of push, let me gonna have to slow up on that so I can focus on, put my focus somewhere else for a minute. But after April, I'll be right back where I was at. Well, May. It should be about May. And be right back where I was at doing those things. But almost complete with the Legacy EP for me and Michael, since you was talking about the rapping part. Almost complete with that EP. So just gotta send the stuff off to Michael so that he can give his last hoorah for it and tell me that it's okay so it can be released.
Okay.
And then what I got 2 albums and an EP that's out already. The EP is on SoundCloud. The 2 albums are on any streaming service that you can go to. One is called Infalme. That was the last album I did. The one before that is called The Dichotomy. That is also on any streaming platform. And then I got, I don't know, maybe about 8, 9, 10 singles, something like that. That's out on those platforms also. But if you want to get to any of that stuff, I will put a link in the description. That is my that is my link to all of everything that I'm doing, from Amazon, my author page on Amazon, Realtor, and anything else I'm doing. I was thinking about trying to get back to getting those shirts and sweaters started again, but soon we'll have a guy that's been doing that for years. So,
okay.
Maybe he'll give some nuggets on how to get some of that stuff started.
All right.
The right way. So,
okay.
And that's it. If you got any real estate questions or concerns in the Metro Atlanta area or anywhere in the nation, just give me a call, 404-438-7113. But if you're looking to buy in Metro Atlanta, I can help you out here. Also, my goal is by the end of the year to have my license in Michigan also. Well,
I need that to happen quick.
Okay.
I
may start speeding up that timetable.
I know. Let me know, because listen, I got at least 3 folks like right now that are looking for a place.
Okay.
And, I'll start. That includes me.
I'll start trying to speed that timetable up.
Yeah.
But gotta find me some. I gotta get there and find some lenders and stuff to work.
Understood.
Stuff like that. But trying to get some other things going. It's all about building a legacy, building things up for my 3 kids and for myself, so that I can enjoy the rest of my life and travel and do the things that I would like to do, and help some people do the same thing and help them build some things so that they can have some things too. That's what this show is all about, trying to help people.
Absolutely.
And we are trying to help each other. So thank y'all for tuning in. Wealthy Thoughts. We'll be back next week. Peace.
This is hip hop. Pay homage, dishonest, I'm top dollars, hot drama is promise, even my hypothalamus is uncommon. Got these niggas salty as ramen, every lyric I vomit, got too much wattage, and these niggas is homage. Y'all comics to me, I comment to be, demolishing MIC, I'm astonishing Muhammad Ali, I'm too pretty. Acknowledge my deep knowledge, they seek stoppage, cause my deep pockets, Mansa Musa, deplete their economics. The heck if I miss, my every spec is hotness, I get a wreath of respect, I'm from Detroit, bitch, I wreck shit, the best mix of excellence, the checks get prevalent, it's evident, I got arrogance to be confident and I'm obstinate. The flow is noodles, I get rules. When Russian chicks look at the strudel, I ain't got no scruples. Accruals of oodles or dough. We shooters on scooters, protecting my futures. I'm expecting distributions. I drop jewels, bitch. This is hip hop. You niggas ain't ready for the flows I rain down. Drip drop, Kane is tip top. This is hip hop. You niggas ain't ready for flows I rain down.